Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 3 of Import Tutorial. This is titled Parent and Scaling. So in this episode we're going to look at the parent/child relationship between CC nodes, and we're also going to talk about the importance of scaling nodes. So get straight into it with the parent nodes and stuff. So you can see here we have self add child background, and you've seen it before again with the background add label and stuff. We've seen that right from episode number 1. What we're actually doing here is we're basically attaching nodes to each other. So one node is become like a parent node, and anything we attach to it is then a child of that parent. So when you see self add child background, as I told you before, self references the scene or this class. So we're actually adding background to the scene. For the labels, we're adding labels to the background. So the labels are children of the actual background. So to kind of put this in a visualization for you, if I change the background to a CC sprite draggable, what you can do is just Command C, copy it, or well, copy and paste it. And I have the code already in here. I had to just comment it out, but just make sure you add in your background.user interaction enabled equal to yes. Make sure you add that in, so that way you can actually get the touch events. We're going to drag it around. Build and run your project here. I'm building it on the iPhone 6 Plus. So once it runs here, I'll show you. Okay, so when I drag the background, you can see what's happening here is because the labels are attached to the background rather than the scene, the labels are actually moving around with the background and are staying relative to the actual background's position itself. So if I go down here and I remove this and change the label, so this is where the label is created here, and then add to the scene here, I'll add to the background. If I change it and add to the actual scene itself, what do you think will happen? Well, let me show you. Just give it a second to build and run here. And of course, if I move the background, you can see because the labels are no longer attached to the background, are no longer childs of the parent object, which was the background, they're now the children of the scene itself. They're not moving with the background at all. But look at this now, and this is what you might find interesting here, is the labels are actually pretty off center. They're moved off, they're aligned to the left almost. Now if I change device here, I change this up and we change our target to the iPhone 4S. So the iPhone 4S, the resolution I think is 960 by 640, but the kind of base in terms of points, and you don't need to worry about this too much, is 480 by 320. And ideally that's what we're going to design our game in that resolution, the 480 by 320. Now you can see here, I haven't changed any code at all. I've just literally just built it for the iPhone 4, but now the labels are centered. And the reason for that is because when we've added the labels to the actual scene itself, we're not exactly positioned right. We're positioned kind of based on the background content size. The background content size, the actual, if you look at BG01 in your resource files, which you can go over here and you can just right click and say show in Finder and you can look at it. The actual file there is 480 by 320, and again that's because that's the size we want to draw at and stuff. So because that's where we're positioning the sprites, we're positioning the labels in at the kind of the background, the height, which is just there, and the contents of the height, which would be 320, and the width is kind of, we're just almost placing it in the middle, or sorry, we're placing it at 240, which would normally be the kind of the halfway mark of 480. You can see that's why on 4S it's looking perfect, but on that it's not. So this is where we get into a really interesting question here of how do we actually handle this. So I'm just going to add these back to the background itself. I'm going to go off over into my Photoshop project here. Now this is something you're actually getting a look at development behind ZenForms Protectors. This is my CP garden scene. I have a Photoshop class here, or a Photoshop file here, and this is to handle all of my design work. So this is how I come up with scenes, and I design scenes before I actually code them. I come up with them in Photoshop and then I position them. So if you remember, I believe it was in episode 1, maybe episode 2, we talked about sprites and anchor points and stuff like that as well. If I wanted to place this red image here on this back, let's say we're adding it to the background and this is called like red sprite or whatever, we would set the anchor point to 0.0 or whatever you want. So let's say 0.0 is the lower left corner, and then I'll go right, the position of this is, and I look in Photoshop and I'll go right up to that lower left corner. Of course you'll align it perfectly, I'm not getting, I guess, perfect here, but I'll go right, the position is, the width is 156 and the height is 213, and all I do when I'm adding that in is I'd say, let's imagine this was the sprite, and I'd set the anchor point, you can see here, I'd set that to 0.0 and 0.0, which is the bottom left, and I'd say the position equals, and I'd say exactly those values Photoshop would give me. I'd add it to the background and it would be placed exactly there, and no matter what resolution I built for it, would always be built for that, or would always look in place. So I want to go next on to kind of scaling nodes. Now I do have an accompanying episode to this, it's called the mini tips and it's called Code Snippets, and I show you how to use some code snippets. Make sure you go into the thread and take them down because they are very important. For handling code snippets and size and stuff, what you need to do first is get the window size. Now I have a code snippet here and I'll just show you a code snippet in action. Code snippet lets you can actually drag and drop it from the side here, from the right hand side. You can see I actually still had that in from the code snippet tutorial. But if we go over here and we say get screen size, so if you just say screen and have to get screen size, you can actually click and just drag it in and it'll automatically do the code in there. Or you can use whatever you have, which I've shown in the tutorial, whatever you have for the completion shortcut. So I have get screen size, I have new, and I explain why I have new there. But if we say get screen size new and put it in, we've got the screen size, and I also put in float variables, which are decimal point variables. They're decimal point number variables, and I have underscore scale x diff or scale diff for the x and scale diff for the y. You might go, well, what the hell is that? Well, this is where we can go back to episode 1 and we can log them out. So of course we clear our log. I'm going to copy and paste in the variable, and to log out a float value you put in a percentage and an f. Now if it was an integer or an int, you put in percentage I, and if it's a string you put percentage at. So we're going to say f for float, and what we'll do is, so that will, when we log this, it will say scale diff equals, and it will say the number. Go after the end of your string here, put in the comma, and then put in the variable name. We're going to do the same again for the y value. So again, go back into your string, just put in a little divider, whatever you want, say equal to percentage f again, and of course go to the end, just put in another comma and another argument basically. So we're passing the two arguments. So if we build this here for the iPhone 4, we want to have a look here at the log output. So remember, make sure this is highlighted. And you can see the scale difference is just 1 and 1. Okay, so there's no scaling happening at all to that background or anything at all. Okay, so that's because the background is 480 by 320. That's going to be our design resolution, as I said. Now I'm going to talk about this now as well. So I'm going to just cancel this here and just build it for the iPhone 6. This is really important. So if I remove this scaling for the background, and I build this now, so we're building for the iPhone 6 Plus. So if I was to build that for the 4S again, you might already guess it, because there's no need for scaling, it's the correct size, it will look exactly perfect. But because we're building for the iPhone 6 here, the 6 Plus, Cocos2D does try to almost scale it a bit. It kind of almost fits in, but you can see it's not quite fitting in on the width here, so you can see it's a bit too short. So what we want to do is you want to scale the background so that it fits the background. So again, I have a new code completion, which is scale node up. Just press tab to go through it. If you've done it correctly with the we can add in these arguments here for the node. Just change this here to the background and change the background. I'm going to explain what it does here now. So what we're doing is we're scaling based on scale width, or the size dot width, or if the size dot width, excuse me, is greater than 480, we're going to scale the scale x by the value that we got up here, which is the size dot width divided by 480. And again, for the height it's the exact same except with the y value now. So now if we build it and run, of course we're going to get exactly what you saw at the start of the project, but keep an eye on the log as well. So you can see here, before the scene even is fully loaded, you can see that the scale difference here for the x is 1.18333 and the y is 1, just bang on, which we knew that already because the sides were cut off. The image fit the iPhone 6 but was cut off. But now you can see it's perfect and scale up, and this is really important for when you're designing your scenes now, because let's go back to my Photoshop here. We want it to look like this on all the devices. So if you're playing on an iPhone, if you're playing on Android, if you're playing on the Mac, no matter what size it is, you want it to look like that. So it's always great for you to have an image here in the background. Now that's in the background that's scaled correctly. Now what you can also do here is I have it commented out, and of course remember commenting is great for just disabling code without actually having to delete it here. If you put this in yourself here, just put in background dot opacity equals 0. So what that means is the opacity of the background is just 0, so it's not going to be drawn, but the children will be drawn, and of course it's still technically there. It's just that it's basically invisible. It's opacity. It's kind of completely 100% transparent. You cannot see it at all. This is brilliant for drawing scenes. Okay, now let me explain why. You can add in an invisible background. Let's say you're creating a title screen and you want it to look exactly perfect on all your devices. Add in an invisible image that's 480 by 320. Make sure you scale it up, so just the way you've seen with the background. Make it invisible, and then add your UI onto the background itself. So let's say if you had buttons for like starting a new game or continue a game or whatever options, which ironic is what SendForm has, you can actually draw them in and they'll be perfectly aligned and perfectly set up no matter what device you're running on. So another example real quick I want to show you is, if we turn back on, is if I go down here and I just, let's say I copy the, which one will I copy? I will copy the first string. So I want you to highlight everything from down where you add it all the way up to the top, or the other way around, from when you create it down to where you add it. Command C to copy it. We'll do it down here underneath all of that stuff, and we'll just Command V it in. Make sure you change the variable name, otherwise we'll get errors. So we'll change to number 3, label 3, label 3, label 3. And instead of adding the back, I'm going to add to the scene. So it's the exact same, but just added to the scene. Okay, we got an error there. What was the error? So this is great for now. Okay, I've obviously messed up because I've tried to add, oh, I never updated here. My bad. Label 3 added to the scene. There we go. So that's actually a great thing about Cocos2D. If you try to add something again to the scene, it's like it's already added and you'll just get a crash. Now you can see, because I did draw it above it, you can see it is in there, and you can see the actual scale difference. So this one here, which is the label 3 we just added, you can see because the children of the background are scaled according to the background. If we kind of align it up here, you can actually see, remember the Y value was always the same. If we have a look at the scale difference of the Y, it's the exact same. But basically what's happened here is this label has been scaled by the 1 point, it's been multiplied basically by the 1.183 or whatever it is, and you can then see, look at it, it's completely changed. Now if we go and build this for the iPad, this will be an interesting one as well. This will be the last example I'll show you today. So if we build it for the iPad, and if you hear noise, by the way, that's the fans on my Mac. The fans on my Mac are spinning really crazy. You can see its position down there. Now of course, you can see this is scaled up perfectly. It does look a bit more blurry, of course, but that is a sacrifice you want to make. But you can customize it, of course. You can check what device you're running on if you want to customize it. But you can see as well then, the label is completely scaled different here. And if we go back into Xcode, you can see the X value was multiplied by 1.0667, and the scale difference for the Y was actually 1.2, and that's why it is bigger. So remember, this isn't scaled. This is the one, sorry, this one here that's been added to the scene, not to the background. So it retains the default size. You can also see it's slightly aligned to the left as well. It's aligned at 240 pixels, or 240 in points. So you can see there. There you go. So what I want you to do just for this tutorial is, of course, I really want you to check out the mini tips on Code Snippets. Set up your own code snippets. They're very important. As I said, use your code snippets. I want you to mess around with it. And I want you to actually just mess around, add in your own stuff, add in your own parent and child's, drag them around. You can add in, I believe, remember Red City had in like a Jon Snow image. Maybe add in something else on top of the Jon Snow image. Add it as an actual child. So let's say you had, I don't know, like if we add in, like actually before I end this, let's go, we change it back to the iPhone 6 here. And if we had in the logo, so we'll add it in down here, and we'll just say CC sprite draggable, and the badge, right? So we have a badge equals CC sprite draggable, and then what was the name? The CP badge. Whoops. .png. We'll position it wherever. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to go too into it right now. What I want you to do is, I just want you to mess around, add in your own children to the scene, add in different things to them, so then they become a parent of another object, and just keep going through that process and show me your results on the form. And of course, if you want to mess around with scaling, you can actually change the scaling right now of an image. What's the error here we're getting? There shouldn't be any errors. There we go. So even if we change the scaling, so let's say we'll just completely get rid of this then. We get rid of the whole scaling on the background. And what we'll do is we'll say background dot, we can change the scale in general, or you can change the scale in specific X value or Y value. So we'll just say scale X equals, we'll say 0.2. And then remember, now this is going to change the scale of the children as well. So once it compiles and runs, there you go, it's completely squashed, and that's multiplied the width just by 2. So I want you to mess around. That's exactly what I want to do for your homework. I just want you to add in your own children to the scene, mess around, add stuff to them, and show me your results on the form. Thanks very much for watching.